You're listening to the Baha'i World News Service.
Now live local support.
Naglilingkod kay Bahá'u'lláh.
The Association for Baha'i Studies in North America recently held its 48th annual conference. Since 1976, the association has been hosting an annual conference that brings together participants from diverse fields of study to explore the application of the Baha'i teachings to a wide array of prevalent discourses pertaining to the future and well-being of humanity. From the Baha'i World News Service, this is Insights from the Field, a podcast series that explores experiences from Baha'i efforts to contribute to social progress, from the grassroots to the international level. An air of excitement filled the room as over 1,900 attendees gathered for the conference's opening session.
I'd like to welcome you to the 48th Annual Conference of the Association for Baha'i Studies. Welcome.
Fariba Akdasi, a member of the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of the United States, delivered the official statement of purpose, framing the vision for the conference.
The overarching objective of the conference is to serve as an uplifting and welcoming space for participants to explore, learning about contributing to academic and professional discourses essential to the generation of knowledge and the progress of humanity.
Many Baha'is, if not all, work in fields that are shaped to a certain extent by ideas.
Eric Farr, a coordinator of the association's collaborative endeavors, sat with the news service during the conference to discuss how ABS seeks to advance its initiatives.
So what we understand childhood to be will shape to a certain extent how educationalists develop policy and curricula, how the physical buildings of schools are designed and developed. And so Baha'is who are in fields like this, they notice these things and how they affect practice and conversation. And so we kind of have a responsibility as people who care about the well-being of humanity to analyze that, to consider together in small groups or in large groups, how do these ideas kind of accord with the Baha'i teachings and the experience of the Baha'i community? And then once we get an understanding of that, how do we actually contribute to the evolution of thought within these fields? How do we contribute ideas inspired by the Baha'i teachings that can give rise to new social structures, can give rise to new institutions, new social patterns that are more befitting of a humanity come of age? So one of kind of the concrete ways that ABS is trying to do that is by creating kind of a constellation of spaces and activities where people can take initiative, where small groups can draw on the powers of consultation and collaborative inquiry to analyze their fields and think together about how they can contribute to those fields, the discourses of those fields, more coherently, more effectively.
The conference included discipline-specific sessions on economics, literature, sociology and anthropology, history, philosophy, and political science. Beyond the annual conference, the association engages in a range of other activities throughout the year, aimed at enriching the intellectual life of communities, such as reading groups, writing groups, and thematic seminars. Mona Gadirian, another coordinator of the association's collaborative initiatives, explains how the conference fits into this constellation of activities.
The annual conference is a little bit of a punctuation mark in the year, where many of these spaces collide. Reading groups that have been meeting throughout the year have an opportunity sometimes to meet in person for the first time.
The conference provides breakout sessions for reading group participants to explore their reflections from their year-round explorations of various topics. One of these sessions explored the intersection of religion and public health, offering insights into how spiritual principles can shape approaches to this field. Jonathan Asani, an associate professor at Johns Hopkins School of Public Health, co-facilitated the session. Speaking with the news service, he explains that while public health and religion share a common goal, their interaction has been limited.
Public health practitioners and the field of public health in general looks to religion typically as a vehicle to reach populations, as a way to get their public health message out through a trusted conduit. And religion, for the most part, doesn't really see itself playing a major role in public health. At the heart of the question is, how does science, the science of public health, and religion work together to advance human interests? And so a small reading group of 4 individuals began a journey several years ago where we were reading on a weekly basis passages from our scientific literature, public health, epidemiology, and so on, and some of the Baha'i writings on the topic, and trying to build a bridge between them in our own minds and learn about how to talk about this with our colleagues.
Yovania Dektiar, a public health professional and co-facilitator of the session, further describes this initiative.
We applied for the grant and got a small grant to actually fund this research project that is around doing key informant interviews with public health practitioners or people in academia to see what is the current experience that they have. Do they see a relationship with public health and religion? Is there a merit to this relationship? And I think, sometimes there are many connotations around religion. And even sometimes we wanted to use the word spirituality versus religion when we were starting to ask people if they wanted to be interviewed. And, initially there was some kind of reticence. Very often the first sort of sentiment is whoa, let's not go there. But I think what we realized is that once we kind of explained a little bit what we meant by religion and what this project was seeking to do, these key informant interviewees were really thirsting for a conversation. Because in many cases, people that are interested in this conversation are themselves religious or are themselves practicing a faith or have a sense of spirituality. But I think they themselves, throughout the course of the interviews, sort of express this sort of incoherence between their beliefs and their ability to bring their beliefs into the academia. So how do you talk about having these beliefs that actually gives you purpose, and that's why they are contributing to public health, and that's why they are doing the profession that they're doing, but then not sort of feeling comfortable with bringing sort of spirituality and religion into that context. And so I think that's why at the beginning sometimes there was closed doors of well, we don't know, but then opening up that space and sort of continuing that dialogue, they realized that they had things to share, they had experiences, and there is this question out there of how do we bring coherence between our beliefs and our work.
Yovania discusses how applying the spiritual principle of humanity's oneness can reshape our approach to health policies and practices.
And so one principle of our faith is the oneness of humanity. And I think this principle of oneness really sort of tied into questions of health for everyone, justice for everyone. What does healthy mean? And how does a principle like the oneness of humanity come to manifest itself not only in our actions, but really in policies that are now going to be made around, population health and this kind of tension between my individual health and the health of a population. And how does this principle of oneness of humanity come to express itself in this way?
Yovania goes on to explain that viewing health through the principle of oneness transforms our understanding. It shifts health from an individual concern to a collective responsibility, calling for greater cooperation among people, communities, and institutions. The discussions from this breakout session provide a glimpse into how the harmony between scientific and religious knowledge can offer profound insights into the present challenges that our societies are facing. Mona Gadirian discusses thematic seminars, which are a recent addition to the conference. These bring smaller groups together a day or two early for intensive exploration of specific topics.
A thematic seminar allows for a degree of intellectual rigor and intensity, and it really gives you a chance to roll up the sleeves a little bit, invite more people into the conversation.
One seminar focused on the interplay between technology and society, exploring how this relates to the Baha'i principle of the harmony of science and religion. Janice Ndegwa, a PhD student in history, focusing on the history of science and technology in East Africa, spoke with the news service about the seminar's approach to this relationship.
So the seminar focuses on this interaction of technology and society. One of the popular ways of thinking about technology is that it's human beings who basically have to adjust to the way that technology works. And then you have another point of view that talks about, well, technology is a reflection of what a society is thinking about. So whatever values a society has will come through in the technology that is created in that society. So there's this question of technology and society co-creating each other and trying to figure out those dynamics and what that looks like in the North American context is sort of the core of our conversation.
This exploration of the reciprocal relationship between technology and society opens up discussions about how Baha'i principles can inform approaches to technological development. One concept Janice discusses is the nobility of each human being.
There's so many principles of the Baha'i faith, and when you think about the human being as noble, then it becomes possible to see this human being as an active participant in the process of producing knowledge, of applying knowledge, of disseminating knowledge. So then in the technologies that we're creating, in the technologies that we're making possible for humanity to engage with, if we treat all human beings as people who can be active proponents or active participants in the process of knowledge production, then the idea that we just take up technologies that are produced, let's say, in one part of a country or one part of the world and just applying them wholesale to another community wouldn't be possible, because we would realize, well, we don't have to recreate the wheel every time, but sometimes these values that are underlying this technology that we have may not be relevant or may actually be harmful to another community. And those people in that community have the right to build this capacity to be able to decide for themselves and to be able to actually say no and have that be respected, because there is a technological culture that this community has built, and they're able to decide for themselves that this is something they want to integrate.
Another seminar, Africana Discourses on Social Transformation, explored ideas from Africana thinkers alongside Baha'i perspectives on capacity building. Participants examined how these approaches contribute to material and spiritual progress in society. Derek Smith, a professor in the literature department at Claremont McKenna College, co-facilitated this seminar. Speaking with the news service, he shares his perspective on the Africana intellectual tradition's contribution to discussions on social change.
Some of the most significant contributions to the discourse on the amelioration of ills in society have been offered by Africana thinkers as Baha'is who are thinking about how we might contribute to a discourse on social transformation, it is important, I think, that we are conversant with and familiar with these contributions that have been made by Africana thinkers, and so that we can do that work of bringing the insights from the revelation of Bahá'u'lláh to the discourse in a way that is legible and understandable and meaningful to those who are quite familiar with some of the thinkers that we're looking at, such as Martin Luther King, Patricia Hill Collins, Cedric Robinson, Audre Lorde.
Derek reflects on how insights from the Baha'i teachings can complement current perspectives in the discourse on social transformation, including those from Africana scholarship and thought.
There tends to be a materialistic worldview that is underlying the theories that are put forth and the analysis that's done. And this is not always the case, but even in the case of people who have perhaps a more sort of spiritual orientation, there's a primacy given to material concerns, the idea that perhaps the best way to create social change is through political means that address economic and social factors. And while, of course, from the Baha'i perspective, we are seeking for the advancement of the material lives of individuals, we find it, of course, inseparable from spiritual advancement. We're trying to figure out how we can be more adept at finding those points of unity which allow Baha'i perspectives to be well correlated with the perspectives that emerge from Africana discourses on social transformation.
Derek discusses how the Baha'i community's experience with moral educational programs that build capacity for service to society can offer insights to this discourse.
One of the things that we've been discussing in the seminar is sort of like the need for creating change among individuals and also groups. But I think that one of the things that the Baha'i world is learning so much about right now is the idea of capacity building among individuals and collectives. And of course, in order to truly build capacity, there is this need for the training of individuals and collectives. So one of the things that the Baha'i community is really exploring and learning about right now is the use of educational processes, particularly focused on children and youth, that give them the capacity to analyze their reality, to strengthen their commitments to certain kinds of principles like justice, equality between men and women, the unity of all people, and then build the capacities to act upon those in their grassroots contexts, right? And so throughout the world, the Baha'i community is exploring how that can be done through something that we usually call the institute process. Now, this desire, I think, for more and more people to be able to act upon their commitment to noble principles is something that is appreciated, I think, and draws the interest of thinkers from an Africana tradition, right, and many other traditions concerned with social change.
As the conference concluded, participants were left with inspiration to explore how insights from the Baha'i teachings can contribute to addressing contemporary challenges across diverse fields of work and study.
We can see real-life examples of different discourses that are being touched on.
Learning about, the harmony between science and religion, how it applies to my field in technology, dealing with like-minded people and consulting about how we can take the industry further. It's just been an incredible experience.
It's so cool to see so many people come together, and I've really enjoyed all the different sessions I've been to so far. I've learned a lot and also engaged in really meaningful discussions, some that I have never had before, and I felt that they were very necessary and very needed.
One of the things that the seminar is helping me to think through is how to connect these principles from the Baha'i faith and to actually think about contributions that I can make in my field and my career, because I think it's kind of challenging growing up and serving in your neighborhood and learning how to do all these things in one context, and then feeling that your life is quite fragmented in terms of the kinds of contributions that you can make in your university or in your work. So I think one of the things is just trying to make it a little bit more coherent, all of these contributions, and really thinking about my entire life as a life of service.
You've been listening to Insights from the Field, a podcast series from the Baha'i World News Service. For more podcasts and stories, visit news.baha'i.org.